Okay, well, I appreciate you inviting me here today to share a little bit more about our cochlear implant technology.
Can we pass those around? Just,
Yeah,
is that
absolutely.
okay?
So, whatever the best way is. This is just real quick, the internal part is in here. Obviously, it's a dummy, so there's not the 16 electrodes on the very end of it, but the rest of it is very accurate. And
Don't try to put it in somebody's ear, guys.
and then here's the Sky CIM processor. And then some retention options we'll talk about. This is the hearing aid and processor as well in this one. So feel free to pass
I'm going
this
to pass
around.
them around.
Is this a good spot to stand? Do you feel like you guys can see the screen? Everything's okay. So I'll just go ahead and introduce myself first. I'm Allie Debbie. I'm the cochlear implant consumer specialist with Advanced Bionics. I've been with AB for a little over 4 years. Previous to my work with AB, I was a teacher of the deaf for 13 years and an auditory verbal educator. I worked up at Utah State University for 6 years, and I worked in Arizona at Arizona Schools for the Deaf and Blind, and also a school called Desert Voices, where deaf children are learning how to talk. I worked there for, well, Arizona a total of 7 years. So prior getting into the field, and you can turn my slide, I'm going to kind of share my why, like why I'm here, why I do what I do, what led me into the field. So this is my daughter, Mackenzie, and she was born profoundly deaf. She is doing amazing now. She's 19, and she really just got me when I wanted to close that language gap that existed. I knew she was way behind. I ended up going back to school and getting my master's in deaf ed, and that kind of just set this different path in life that I wasn't expecting at the time, but it's been such a beautiful blessing and a great journey. I love being able to share with families what's possible thanks to cochlear implant technology. Previously, I just worked with little tinies, but now I work with adults as well, and it is absolutely life-changing being able to sit with someone who's crying and saying, I don't do the things I used to do. I don't want to go to lunch with the girls, or I no longer like going to family gatherings because they can't hear. And then to sit with them again down the road and to see those tears again, saying, I'm getting my life back. So this is awesome. I love doing what I do. I love being able to share with people about our technology and our resources available. Can you guys all see? I feel like I'm in. Would it be better if I stand on this side? I'm going to stand over here.
I just read it, so it's okay.
Can you see the screen? Okay. Just let me know.
I can move that thing to the side too.
I don't even really need this. I was just setting this on it when I talk about it. I'm going to move over here because I feel like I'm blocking the view. Is anyone sitting in this chair? No? Okay. All right, as I'm sure most of you are familiar with, we know that ears are the doorway to the brain. Can I have you click again?
Yep.
Sorry, I have lots of clicks. We know that the brain isn't fully developed at birth, and that children, you can click again, need to hear 45 million words by the age of 4 for their language foundation. And also 20,000 hours of listening in early childhood is the basis for literacy down the road. And we know how important, it's okay. And we know how important it is for that, whoops, backwards. We know how important it is for that human interaction piece, that language input from family members, from teachers. And so we're gonna talk just a little bit about how the child hears the world, which, how many of you are audiologists in this room? Okay, and how many are?
There.
Awesome.
2.
And the teachers of the deaf?
That's everybody else.
Pretty much everybody else? Am I missing SLPs?
And there's some online too. That
Some online? Okay. Just trying to fill out my audience. I'm sure you all know how the normal hearing ear works. The sound is going to travel through the canal. Can I have you click it? It will travel through the canal. It will hit the eardrum, causing it to vibrate, which sets that ossicular chain into motion. And then those waves are carried into the cochlea, where thousands of hair cells are. If you could unravel that cochlea, if you could, and straighten it out, you'd see that there's over 10,000 hair cells in there. And their job is to relay loudness and pitch onto the auditory nerve and then onto the brain. You can click now. When someone has a sensorineural hearing loss, then the sound is going to make its way up just as it should, right till it gets to the cochlea, and then that's where the disruption occurs. You can click again. And for the majority, I would say, of children with hearing loss, hearing aids are a very appropriate solution. It gives them access to sound to match their hearing loss, and it's fantastic, and they do very well with them. Can you click again? But then there's another part of the population who, with those hair cells, if there's enough damage within those hair cells, whether, like in my daughter's case, where a lot of them just didn't form as they should have in utero, or maybe it's noise-induced hearing loss or due to medications, if there's enough damage to those hair cells in the cochlea, then you've got, this kind of tries to illustrate that. So if you take a signal and you amplify it and make it louder, if there's enough damage in the hair cells, you're taking just a poor signal and making it a louder poor signal, which obviously, as we know, that doesn't help with clarity. And if that's the case, then that might be when a cochlear implant's the next step, so that they can have that clarity. This is just a diagram of what it looks like. So you have your sound processor that you wear on the outside, and then you have the cochlear implant, which is under the skin, and then the electrode array. It comes down here into the cochlea. You can go again. This next one just shows how the cochlear implant works. The microphone picks up sound, sends it to the processor, and that message is then sent over to the electrode array, which carries that information onto the auditory nerve and onto the brain, and it happens like that. And so we're going to talk a little bit about our current technology, what we're using. This is called the Sky CIM. It comes in a variety of colors and fun things. We'll talk a little bit about some of the features of the CIM. It's the world's first dedicated processor made specifically for children. Not that adults can't utilize it as well, but there's some junior pediatric programming modes, lots of fun colors that distinguish it from the adult version. Go ahead and click. And today we'll just talk a little bit about how it can provide a powerful hearing experience, how it's designed to grow with the child, and how it can provide the ultimate ease of use. So for powerful hearing experience, how many of you know that Advanced Bionics and Phonak are sister companies that were owned by Sonova? So we work together, and because of that relationship, we're able to utilize the research and the technology that Phonak's been working on for over 70 years into our technology. One of these things that helps provide a powerful hearing experience is our AutoSense OS, or Sky OS. And what it does is it's analyzing the child's environment. So every 0.4 seconds, it's analyzing the environment and it's making adjustments that are needed so that that child can hear optimally, whether they're in a car or they're one-on-one or they're in a big and noisy auditorium, which can be loud. But it helps to make those changes so that you're not constantly having to change programs or change volume. It's doing it for that child. My favorite thing, which I'm going to talk about, is the built-in Roger. So, okay, just by show of hands, how many of you have had a student who has lost a little FM receiver off a hearing aid or a cochlear implant processor? Yeah, probably pretty much most people who, if you've worked with children with hearing loss, you probably have.
I'm losing my link.
Oh, well, at least that's a little bigger. Hopefully you found it. No? Oh.
We lost one in a pillowcase, which was a behavior, not a true loss, and it came back.
We never found it. Oh. Well, I will say, like, taking off my professional hat for a minute, and just the parent side, we were able to take home my daughter's FM systems for her extracurricular activities, which was wonderful, but we lost a little MLXI, and that about gave me a heart attack. I mean, we tore our house upside down, could not find it anywhere. It was found like 3 months later in a little tiny hole in our couch when the kids would remove the cushions to make forts and things. There was a small hole and it happened to fall in that hole. And I don't know how we found it, but we did. And I was very happy about that. But as a teacher, when I worked in Yuma, Arizona, we had a central location where all the kids in the county would be bused to our school. And there was different teachers of the deaf in all different grades. And then we also had pull-out classrooms. And I did oral rehab there with kiddos. But so we had a large volume of children with hearing loss and devices, and I had this huge basket in my classroom that had candy bars and prizes. So when an announcement would come on over the whole school system that a small receiver was lost, all the kids knew what to look for, because we showed all the classrooms at the beginning of the year how to be a good friend, how to, what to look for, how to help, things that could get lost. And you would know when an announcement was made, because if you looked out your window, you would see 150 kids on the playground like this, looking for that little receiver, and we always found them, which is a miracle in itself. But they knew they got a special treat from Miss Allie's room when that happened.
They were quite proud of themselves to get the treat.
Yeah, they wanted the treat. Oh, no, these were the typical hearing peers finding their friends' devices, But now with Advanced Bionics, kids don't have to worry about that anymore, because the Roger itself, there's not a receiver you have to attach. There's a license that gets opened up in the processor, but they don't ever have to go in and change it out in the mornings or at the end of the day or worry about it getting lost, which I'm back on the parent side of things. I remember taking my daughter to school and her just being like, oh, Mom, I don't want them to take off my processors. And it would drive her crazy, because she felt kind of like, whether it was in the back of the classroom, the front of the classroom, she just felt like it was setting herself apart, having to take it off, get it put on, do the listen check. But now it's literally the teacher turns on the mic, they're good to go once it's initially installed at the beginning of the year. And it can hold 2 receivers in it. Each processor or hearing aid can hold 2. So let's say they have a Roger device at home with an O3 receiver. At the school, oftentimes they'll use a different type of Roger system, maybe a Roger touchscreen or whatever the school uses, but the O2 receivers can be installed as well.
I have an issue with that.
Okay.
Why can they not use one receiver? I think it's crazy that you have to put 2 receivers into each of those units. Cost-wise too. I think it's crazy.
I'm not sure the whole reasoning behind it. I just know that the school side of things for Phonak, so that they have a product to sell as well. I don't know if that has something to do with it, but yeah.
I don't know. I just have a big issue, because these should come automatically with a receiver in. I think they should be sent home with an integrated receiver inside, their virtual receivers or whatever. That's just my opinion.
It would be very nice for sure. If they choose a Roger in their kit, they can get it for free.
It only works with the
But that's just
on, the
it,
Roger
yeah.
pen, and the slide.
It does not work with the one in the school, which is what I'm finding, and I think that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
They've already had to get one, now we have to buy one to put in. Anyways, just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I'll share the feedback. I'm
Please
sure that
do.
a lot of people have, so I will continue to share
I
that.
told Phonak and asked them that too, and they said it's a cheaper receiver. And so if you want the more expensive receiver, the district has to pay for it. Like, that was the feedback I got.
It's, yeah, care about the kids, put it in there.
It definitely is nice though, in the long run, not having to deal with kids having to feel singled out or taking the receiver on and off, or dealing with the lost pieces.
So are these receivers installed through the Roger installer?
For the ones at the school, yes. The ones that they get in their kit, if they get a Roger On or a Roger Select IN, basically when they get their device, they get their Roger, there's a little pin tool in the back you hold, and then it opens up the license in their processor. So, but for the school in installing, that would be a Roger installer with an O2 receiver. Okay, you can go ahead and turn it.
I have a quick question. So I heard you say that parents could choose. Are parents allowed to choose a Roger X as one of their things, or does it have to be the Roger 3?
Yeah, so if they have a Roger system already and they're upgrading, they're welcome to choose a Roger X to come in their kit. Most times they won't, because it's almost the same amount as a brand new receiver with 2 Roger installations, the same amount of points on the order form, but they can do that if they choose to.
But the Roger X they're getting only works with the 3 microphones.
Right.
They don't have access to the one that
school
works with
ones,
the
yeah.
school. There's major confusion with that.
Yeah.
So the school kind of has their separate system, and then the home environment has their separate one. So.
To work with the home system as well?
Will the Roger X?
Will they rather work with the home system as well?
Can you explain the O2 versus the O3? Because they're both Roger X's.
Okay,
I
so
think that's where
So the Roger 3 is the one that works with like the Roger Select On or the Roger Select IN. Those ones that come in the general kits that families order. The school generally uses Roger touchscreen mics or different systems here, and they have a specified one that's for the schools, a Roger 2 receiver that works with those types of microphones. So if a child was to bring, let's just say they had a Roger On and they brought it to school, which we don't want kids to have to bring their own device from home, but if they did, I mean, they could use that here, but most schools prefer to use like the Roger touchscreen and that type of Roger receiver, Roger
With
transmitter.
the Roger On, you can't do a gain on it or anything. You're kind of, it's made for people to have the app and for older kids to be using it. That's the new touch, or the Roger Pen mixed with the Roger.
Kind of like a
Select. They had
Roger's.
baby.
Mhm,
And
yeah.
Roger On is the baby of the Pen and the Select together. So they took what people didn't like and created a new.
It's a great visual.
a new-
He said it's a great visual, the Roger On and the Roger Pen having a baby. But it's really nice. It does have the lanyard mode for when there's a speaker. It has pointing mode, which is really nice if you're doing group type of activities, like to be able to just point it, you can hear that way, or you can set it on the table and it will pick up the conversation around the table. And as she mentioned, there is an app where you can control, like, if you want just this side, like beaming in the microphone and cutting out noise on this side. But again, that's not generally the ones they're using in the school settings.
But you can mute the speaker as well,
Yes.
which is one of the benefits for older kids,
Mhm.
is that they don't have to hear their teacher talking to smaller groups of students. They
Yeah.
can mute and unmute their teacher.
Yeah.
That's one of the benefits of the On that you don't have on the touchscreen mic, unless you walk up and touch them.
Here,
Which gets very socially.
let me mute you.
And really, I mean, it is hard for teachers to remember to mute that mic when they're in the middle of teaching a giant class of students. I don't know what your different settings are like. In my daughter's school, she would have her personal FM system and plug it into a sound field. So the teacher had a mic that boosted her whole voice to the classroom. So it was a lot easier for her to remember, oh, I need to mute my mic, because she could hear herself. But in other situations, I mean, my daughter's like, Mom, I heard her going to the bathroom. I'm like, I know that happens.
Every deaf kid has that story.
Yep, they do. For the growing adventure, and it comes in a choice of a lot of fun colors. I think I have that one out here. Did you guys see it? There's some fun colors in there. I always, when I'm talking with families, sometimes they'll say like, I want it to blend in. I don't want it to stand out. And while, I mean, everyone has their own opinions and that's fine. I always encourage them though, if your child's excited about a color, go with that color. Let them own their device. Let them feel proud of it and not feel like they're gonna see it. Because I'm sure you guys have all seen it. When a parent is self-conscious about a child's equipment, that child gets self-conscious. When a parent's like excited about it, the child's excited about it.
We had a parent, I love this parent, she was a rock star parent. When this kid had an implant, she said, yeah, we let him do anything. We let him pimp it out, is what she called it. And I said, oh, that was the funniest thing I'd ever heard. She goes, because that way he does own it, and he's proud of it, and he's happy to show everyone the cool, device and stuff. So
Absolutely.
it's all about attitude on educators and on parents.
For sure, for sure. Helping them become good advocates, being excited about it, knowing like, hey, these help me here and I love them, and not, I gotta hide them because I don't want people to know there's something different. We also have the waterproof battery, which you guys all saw that. It looks like this, and it comes with a clip on it, a clip you attach to it. It plugs in to charge. It has an 18-hour battery life when it's charged, so it will last the full day at the lake or wherever you're going. But it comes with an armband, so they can clip it on their armband, and then they just have their cable with the very thin, light headpiece that goes on their head, so not much. They can swim underwater, and it's not going to be falling off their ear. But it's really nice. Another really cool feature about it is I know a lot of you probably work with littles, but I'm sure a lot of you work with older kids too. Something that the older kids and teenagers really like is that if it's paired to their phone or their iPad or whatever, they can be swimming laps and listening to their music in the pool. Like no one's hearing it, but they are like enjoying that. That was my daughter's favorite thing about that when she upgraded. She's like, oh my gosh, that's so nice. She'd be working out and just listening to her music, not worrying about trying to get her headphones in with her T mic in the right spot. It was great to stream directly.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm still in. I'm over here. Let me undo the camera. Hey, my son who's 21 has the Marvel, and he wants to know how waterproof is the Marvel, because he doesn't like the armband thing. He just is like, that's going to be so annoying. Is there a better way? And how waterproof, like how wet can he get the Marvel without it?
It's water resistant, but it's not waterproof. So mom hat on again. My daughter, when she was doing her homework during the whole Zoom time, school, she was doing some independent work, and her little sister, because I have a pretty big gap in my kids' ages. So her little sister came, grabbed her processor, and like ran with it, trying to get my daughter's attention. So my daughter's like getting up to chase her. Her brother was in the bathtub at the time, and my daughter tossed it, so it like went down. The jets are on in the tub, and it's like, oh my gosh, and I reach down and I pull it out. It worked fine. We put it in the dryer kit. It worked fine. Don't recommend submerging it in water. It is water resistant, not waterproof. So like rain, sprinklers. I have people who do water aerobics that wear like a weight belt. They say they're very particular, don't like to get their hair wet. And they wear it that way with a retention option, but it's not waterproof. And I can't say, oh, you can get it this wet or that wet, because
You don't have a skin for it?
no, we have the waterproof battery. So in the past, do you guys remember the other version, the kind of big box that the whole processor fit in? My daughter had one, and honestly, she hated it. She said it's too bulky. She just sometimes would rather just go without it. But this one, when she got these, she just clips into her swimsuit straps in the back, and she loves them. They're very light if you picked it up. The battery comes off the processor, it slides into this battery, closes, and they're good. But
So bilateral, you need two then.
Yep, she has two of them. But some people, like if they're going between points and deciding, like, do I want two activity kits or do I want a Roger? Oftentimes they'll get one active lifestyle kit if they're upgrading both ears, and then they'll get the Roger, and then with an extra point, they'll get the waterproof headpiece. And then after a year, when their batteries are out of warranty, they can go through insurance and get a waterproof battery. So that's usually insurances don't cover Roger equipment, but they do cover batteries most times. So that's kind of their workaround when they're deciding, like, do I want to get two of these or do I want to get a Roger on one of these and just use one for now? So that's kind of what I'm seeing most families choose. The variety of wearing options, so they can wear it off of their clothing in the clip that you guys probably all saw that, yeah. So there's off their wearing clip. There's also some retention options they can wear that just come free in their kit. The retention cuff, the Snuggie. I don't know how many of you guys have students who have Marvel right now, the Marvel processor, the Sky CIM. But with the Kirk battery, they stay on so much better. My daughter, when she got hers, she put them on and she started jump roping, and she's like, oh my gosh, they stay on so much better. So she doesn't use any of the retention options, but we have them in case she ever needs them. So you can turn the slide. For the ultimate ease of use, again, the AutoSense OS Sky, it's making the adjustments for them. It just makes life easier. Being able to connect wirelessly to not just an iPhone or an iPad, but really any Bluetooth enabled device. So I have some elderly patients who have like the flip phone that, you have to push it 5 times to get the right letter when they're texting. But it will connect to those as well. Anything that has Bluetooth, it basically connects to. So it's really nice. Another cool feature that I'll share is, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but own voice pickup. Have you guys heard that? So it's great that all companies now have the ability to stream, to have those options for recipients. With Advanced Bionics, we have own voice pickup. So as long as their phone is within Bluetooth range, if a call comes in, like my kids, we don't let them take their phones to their rooms at night. And so they would be plugged in the kitchen. And if I was downstairs putting the little ones to bed and I needed to tell Mackenzie something upstairs in her room, I could call her. Her phone's in the kitchen, but she's in her room. She pushes the button, says, hey, what's up, Mom? And we can talk and carry on the conversation. Obviously, she couldn't go to like a grocery store and answer a call if her phone is at home, but if it's in that Bluetooth range, super, super, super handy, especially if you're a multitasker and want to do other things while you're chatting or watching a movie or whatever. There's also an app that you can use to control your device, and I don't have my cell phone up here right now, but is anyone familiar with the app? Let me grab my phone just so I can show you real quick.
AV remote apps. AV remote apps.
So it's called the AV Remote app, and if you have students who use it or you're curious, you can always download it for free. You wouldn't be able to do much with it other than put it in demo mode, unless you have a processor. But this is kind of what you would see when it turns on. So they can turn their volume up or down on each side, or they can join it and turn them up together. This little drop down will show you whatever programs they have in their processor. So like, let's say they have, and you can change those by touching the multifunction button on the processor too, cycling through the programs or turning volume up or down. But it's kind of nice to have just a little app to do that as well. There's also a part where you can do a listen check or device check. So they can hear the different beeps. It will show you the indicator lights are working appropriately. There'll be, if there's any part of the system that there's showing something wonky going on, you'll get a question mark by it. So maybe you're like, man, something just seems a little off. If you look at the app, they can say, oh, it looks like there's something going on with the T-mic. Switch it out and they'd be good.
So question, so I had a kid in Vernal and I'm in St. George. Could I have access to that
Well,
to see if it's malfunctioning or something?
It would be on whoever he's attached to for the app. So it'd probably be on his mom's phone or his phone if he had one. But you could instruct them like, oh, will you pull up the app? Let's make sure everything looks good. You could do that.
And just like let me know if it's something.
Yeah, if there's a question mark or something that shows it's off, switch out the piece or whatever.
There's no way to like distance wise.
Yeah. Not yet. If you look into the things Phonak has for remote programming and all those types of things, you can kind of guess what's coming down the road before too long for AV. But also on here, just a cool feature, when you're in that screen where there's the volume, if you're streaming something or if the child's streaming something, there'll be another dial on the bottom so they could, it adjusts the streaming ratio. So if they go all the way to the right, they're going to hear only the streaming signal. If they go in the middle, it's about 50-50, or all the way to the left, they're just going to hear a tiny bit of the streaming. So like my daughter in school, when they'd be done with instruction and working on their own, she would like turn on her music and just be real quiet, which I didn't encourage, but she loved it. And she did well. As long as you keep your grades up, I'm okay. But or on long road trips when the little ones were like loud and are we there yet? She would just stream it all the way over and be like, like listening to her music or movies. And so
Wait, this is me in St. George again. A follow-up question to Heidi's question. Is it possible if we get parents' permission to, if we're close to them, close enough to use Bluetooth, so like in the same classroom, can they be connected to two different phones at the same time as long as the teacher turns off the Bluetooth connection before attaching it again to the person or their microphones?
Well, for the app, it's only on one, but if you're doing, like, let's say you're doing games or something like via Bluetooth, you can be connected on your device with the child via Bluetooth, but not through the app, if that makes sense. Like if it's on the parents app and they're utilizing, you don't have it on two different devices.
So I have a classroom that has preschoolers we have a couple of kids of our preschoolers with Advanced Bionic devices. They're not very good self-reporters. Is there a way that we, other than to attach the little listening cords, is there a way to monitor them with an app or a phone?
Not unless that was the primary app that was being used. You'd still have to use a listen check and do your leading sounds and try to troubleshoot that way. But so that's that's the only way at this point. So, but good question. I can definitely send that feedback. So, all right. Can I have you switch the slide? So just I talked a little bit about our partnership with Phonak. One of the biggest benefits I think of that partnership is because we're sister companies, we've designed a hearing aid that is specifically meant to work with our cochlear implant system. So not just for things like streaming, because other manufacturers can stream as well to both ears if they have, whether it's a sleeve or whether it's a resound hearing aid. But the Nidalink M is actually designed to process sound similarly between the two ears. Obviously, they'll be able to stream to both ears, but like the binaural voice stream technology features, they'll be able to access that with the hearing aid and cochlear implant working together. So that's a really big perk. Babies who are identified and they get aided, oftentimes audiologists will say, okay, this child is definitely going to be an implant candidate. Let's fit him with the Skylink M hearing aids. And then that way, when they do get implanted, they don't have to use their points. Like if they're bimodal, they won't have to use their points for that compatible hearing aid. They can use it for a Roger or activity kit or whatever.
Can you just explain the point system thing?
Yeah, so on page 1 of the order form is where, they're choosing their colors, their T mic size, what size batteries they want, that type of thing. Page 2 is where if it's a new patient getting an implant, they have 5 points that they get to use. It's kind of like the shopping where they customize the kit to whatever they feel is going to best meet their child's needs. So whether they want like a hearing aid to come in their kit for free or a Roger system or activity kit, they get to use those points to customize it for their child. For upgrades, they have 3 points per ear to use, and the points are kind of adjusted a little different on the upgrade kit versus a new system kit so that they can still get a Roger or get an activity kit or hearing aid. Great question. Are you guys all familiar with kind of the process of when someone needs a cochlear implant, how it goes? So we can click through it really fast then. So you have your referral, whether from a primary care doctor or an audiologist, and you can click it again. And then you have your CI evaluation where they determine if a cochlear implant will be a better option than hearing aids. You meet with the different companies to learn about their products and decide which one's going to match your child's lifestyle or what you're looking for. Then there's the surgery that's generally done outpatient, 1 to 2 hours. I haven't met anyone yet who stayed overnight. Well, I had a baby that stayed overnight once. That was just their protocol at that hospital. And one adult who stayed overnight because he had breathing issues before surgery, so they just wanted to monitor him. But in our situation, it was we got to the hospital before breakfast, we were home by lunch when she had her first implant and then her second implant too. So, and then there's the activation anywhere from a few days to about 5 weeks out is usually that time span you see people activated in. Then there's the programming and follow-up, and every center has their own protocol, whether it's usually they're activated, they get seen at a week, then they get seen at a month, and then 3 months, 6 months. And then beyond that, usually every 6 months to every year based on their needs. And then throughout the whole process, we recommend rehabilitation. So if you click that.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
So I know a student that was activated like the next day.
Uh-huh.
Do you guys have data of how well someone does being activated like the next day via 6 weeks later as far as language goes? And
that's a great question. I don't know of any data about that specific, like when they're activated, how that pans out. But I know generally that's just kind of a surgeon and audiologist call. Like I know a student, actually it was St. George kiddo, who was activated the day after surgery, bilateral surgery. And I was like, what? The very next day. But he did great. They just wore him in the off the ear configuration, and because he had distance to travel, so they activated him and then he went home. But generally it's between 2 and 4 weeks most that I see, just because I want to make sure that incision's healed up enough. But good question. It'd be neat if they did have some data on that. Okay, you can go ahead and turn that. And you can turn this too. We can just MRIs. Are you guys familiar that all 3 companies now have some type of MRI option? which is so nice. Just one less thing that you have to worry about as a parent or someone who has an implant themselves. We know that 1 in 10 Americans get an MRI in any given year, which statistically, we can kind of guess that at some point in all of our lives we'll need an MRI. You can go ahead and turn that. I do have my, if you could see inside, so here's our internal device. This is where the magnet goes. If you could blow that magnet up and see in it, it would look like this. So you've got your magnetic case, and then you've got your cylindrical rods, and inside those are magnetic discs. So basically, because it spins on the 3 different axes, whatever direction that MRI pole is coming from, your magnets will align to it. So you don't have to worry about movement in an MRI. Obviously, you want to be still when you're getting an MRI so they get a clear image, but you don't have to be panicked like, oh my gosh, if my kid moves more than 30 degrees, oh, they're gonna get a real bad zing. We don't want to worry about magnets dislodging in an MRI. So there's no restrictions with our device based on this magnetic design. So super nice for people moving forward who are getting implants nowadays.
Okay, so it's not for the kids who got implants 10, 15 years ago. It's only for the newer ones.
Yeah, yep. So 2000, I think it was 2019 when that one came out. So kids prior to that, if they need an MRI, there's a couple different options. They may want to remove the magnet itself, or they may do a special head wrap. If a CT scan won't suffice and they have to do an MRI, they'll either recommend just a small incision to remove the magnet, put it in afterwards, and then you have to heal though, which no one wants to have to wait. Or the head wrapping. And radiologists will often say if a child has one of the older versions that's not the 3D, they'll say, I'm not touching it. Your surgeon can come down here and wrap your head themselves, and we'll let them do that so that if that magnet does dislodge, they don't want to be liable for that. So, but yeah, so for those who have the high-res ultra 3D is what the internal is called, that's the one that's MRI safe.
Is that the one that's having all the issues though? Because some of our kids have had to be explanted and reimplanted.
The V1,
so
that's the V1 device. So
okay,
the
so
version
this is
1.
different than that then?
Mm-hmm. So it's the same magnet, but the electrode, the version 2 electrode, that solved the issues that was occurring with the V1 devices.
Okay.
So, and just if you're familiar with that, there was a voluntary recall because there was a degradation in sound that kids were experiencing, or recipients were experiencing. And they found that there was a part that some moisture was getting in, which we don't want that to happen because it affects how someone hears. So some of those patients have been revised and implanted with the version 2. And they've done all the testing for version 2 and everything's good to go there. But beyond being FDA approved, we're actually like trying to get the V2 to fail. We want to push it even further because we don't want to have patients deal with that again. So right now, well, as of like 2 months ago, when I was hearing the latest data on the version 2, they were at 45 years advanced aging and with no issues like the V1 had. And advanced aging, it's where it's in a device, it's being pelted nonstop with sand, water, grit, and it's advancing the aging process. So things that an internal device would really never be exposed to, they're trying to get it to fail just so we can see how long can we make this like go on without having that same problem. But yeah, so version 2.
So what year to what year were those, the ones that the water was getting in? What year to what year were those devices that made?
That has and not all of them are doing it by no means, but there is an increased rate of that.
3 years ago.
Yeah, so it was 2016 to 2019, I think, were the V1 devices where there's a potential that could happen. And people who are implanted with V1s, they've received letters to know what to look for. Audiologists are aware of it, so they continue monitoring them. And if they have any concerns, we have a very low threshold of just saying, just get that, reimplant them. And if they do, encourage the family to ask for like externals, like the newest Marvel technology. It's not, no one wants to have to go through surgery again or have their child go through it. So if we can find some kind of silver lining just to help through the process, we want to do all we can for them. So hearingsuccess.com, how many of you guys have been to that site? Hands? A few of you? Okay. So hearingsuccess.com, that's kind of like our one-stop shop with all different rehab resources in there. You can go ahead and click. So for babies and toddlers, there's Baby Beats, the listening room, tools for toddlers. For school-age children, there's the tools for schools, the listening room, AB listening adventures, and then for teenagers and adults, there's the sound success, musical atmospheres in the listening room. And we'll go over a few of these that you may want to utilize as you're working with students. So these are just 4 icons that you'll see when you're in the Hearing Success portal. So if you click on a specific resource, if you click on learn more, you'll be able to see, okay, this focuses on this, this, or a combination of these things. So just a helpful guide there. Go ahead and click. This is kind of like if you go to the landing page, this one would obviously be for a parent. When you register for a device or for an account, the free account, it will show you the resources that will be helpful for that particular population. If an adult registers, they're obviously not going to see the same thing that a parent would see. But if you go to learn more, you'll see where those icons are. It will tell you a brief description of it, and then you can go into it. So you can go ahead and click. Just some more resources on there. They've got apps that they recommend for that particular age range. This is an adult or a teen one, I'm guessing. But you can go ahead and click again too. We also know that about 25% of children are born to Spanish-speaking families, and we know how important it is to be able to offer information and resources in the family's native language. I just think about when some people in the past, when I would work in some places, they would kind of have different mixed feelings on it about, well, English versus Spanish versus whatever. And I just think about myself like, oh my gosh, if someone was coming into my home to help me and my child, and okay, here's your Russian booklet. Now we're going to start. And I'd be like, wait, what? It would be so hard. So I'm really excited that we have so many of our resources available in Spanish as well. You can go ahead and click again. You can click again. To access the Spanish resources in the Hearing Success portal, you just go up to the top. There's a language tab that you can drop down, and then when you click on it, it will pull up everything that's available in Spanish. Okay. We won't talk much about the younger since this isn't PIP, but the Baby Beats tools for toddlers in listening room, you can click. You can click again. We'll just scroll out of this one. And for some of you who have, maybe you're working in the preschool, Baby Beats, even though it's kind of geared to that 3-year-old range, babies to 3s, when you have a child who has very limited language, it would be a great one to introduce to those preschool families too, to help the families learn to enjoy music with their child and to get some of those pre-verbal communication skills going, some early language. For school-age children, we've got preschool and school-age children. We have tools for schools, the listening room, AB adventures, and vocab scenes. How many of you have ever used any of the tools for schools resources? Yeah, okay. There's quite a few very helpful resources in there that you can print off and share with maybe mainstream teachers to teach them about hearing loss, to teach them about the equipment or sound checks or whatever it may be to help that child have more success in that classroom. You can go ahead and click. So that's just a picture of something that they can get from tools from schools. There's also CEU courses. If teachers need CEUs, they can access some courses to learn more about hearing loss, equipment, and again, just help them overall to be more familiarized with that student and what they need. Go ahead and click. The listening room, there's literally hundreds of activities in the listening room that you can access that will help with the development of listening and spoken language. There's parent education articles in there. There's activities and interactions that it encourages for families to help build their child's language. There's print off activities, there's electronic ones they can do. Again, it's available in English and Spanish, and I'll show you a little bit more with this in a moment. You can go ahead and click. These are just some of the printable ones, different type of activities. These are more geared for preschool. You can click again. So on here you can see like the landing page in the listening room. You can see where it says client. So you can actually set up, as an educator, set up a professional account. And then if you'll click, you can send an email out to your student's family. And if they're opted in to the listening room and they have access to it, then you'll be able to share lessons that you think would be helpful for them to do at home with their child. If they're not opted in, they will get an email, like a referral email, like to encourage them to register for it. Go ahead and click again. So you can see here, once you send activities their way, it will show up, the ones that you've sent that student or that family. So you know, like, have I sent this to them? Have they done this before? You'll have a list of what you've shared with them, kind of where they're at in it. So you'll know, like, oh, it looks like you started it, but you haven't done a whole lot in this area. You can encourage those types of activities between the home and school. Go ahead.
And Allie, I know you can access those as a teacher, but if we have students that maybe were implanted with a different brand, do they have access to that as well, or are they only allowed access if they're ABs?
So with AB, we're pretty big on just share it with whoever can utilize it. I hate when you try to go in and share something like, shoot, they can't because they don't have an AB device or a Cochlear device or whatever. But with ours, anyone can register for it. When they register, it's really nice. So if they do put, you know, that they have a cochlear implant, that it's cochlear or it's Medel, just so that AB is not reaching out to offer supports or anything. They'll just be like, oh, this is a cochlear family. They're going to utilize their listening. Great. And then they just kind of close it out so we don't follow up with them. If you'll click again, whoops. Oh, is this the, I can use it now? Yay.
All right, sorry.
Hopefully.
Sorry, we'll get out of that. Go ahead. Can you use it? There we go.
Yes. Okay, so you can have a whole list of your active clients. Let's say you have 5 kids you're doing support with between the home and school. You can utilize it and see all your clients on there. This is just going to kind of show you what you can do. So sorry, it's a little slow trying to record. You can click on lessons there. You can slowly scroll down in my video. And then you can come over here and you can click on, is this an adult, school age child, whatever it may be. So this one, I was showing an adult this. So when you go to the adult one, you can choose, and this would be different, you know, for a student, you'd have different types of activities in here. But you could choose your client, which one you're recommending for them, click add, and it will send it to their family so they see what that activity is. And that searchable option is really nice because if you're working on audition or you're working on minimal pairs or you're working on just overall language development, you can filter those out and just see a whole range of things that you can share with families and students. This is Listening Adventure, so it's an app. There's 6 different games and it works on discriminating sounds and words, understanding critical elements. I'm very cautious about apps because I don't want parents to think like, oh, download this, my kid, let them go play and I'm going to go do something else. That's not what it's for. The apps is for like parent-child or teacher-child interaction together to work on building their language.
I just have one problem with it.
Uh-huh.
My kids love to do Gorilla Crunch with me as a reward after we've done our thing.
Uh-huh.
We lose more than we win. That's
But
a
they
problem.
still love it, so that's good.
They love it. It's a great
They keep
motivator.
thinking they're gonna win this time. Yesterday we lost so fast.
Good question. Is any of this in Spanish or was it?
Yes, we do have, I'll have to look and see if the apps are in Spanish actually. I think they are, but let me double check. If you register for the hearingsuccess.com and click on Spanish, it should show you what type of apps and things that they recommend. So that will let us know if they're in Spanish or not. I'm not 100% sure, but I can look into that for you as well. There's vocab scenes, and there's 3 different formats to that game. There's 6 different scenes, and it's about using and understanding vocabulary words. You can add in critical elements. You can work on prepositions. There's just so many different things you can do when you're working side by side with the child. And I mean, camping, it's not something a lot of our students maybe do every day. So there might be a lot of vocabulary in some of these scenes that they're not exposed to as much. And as you know, working with children with hearing loss, that incidental learning it doesn't always happen as easily as someone who has typical hearing. So having opportunities to sit down and focus on specific vocabulary words and groups like this is really nice. There's also a blog on there if you have families who are looking into cochlear implants, want to hear from someone else who's been through it. There's tons of different blog posts written by parents, by professionals, by audiologists. I mean, just a whole bunch of people in here. They can search through there and find someone that's probably got a similar story to their own that could help them. And I was talking really fast because I wanted to be able to get through and answer any questions you guys might have. But do you guys have any questions for me about anything? Or do you just need a bathroom break?
I have another question. Sorry. So what is the best way for really any kids with implants to make sure that it's working? I usually just talk and look for the green blinking light, but I know there's devices to use, but that's just to make sure it's working, but we have no idea how they're actually hearing.
I would, yeah, that's a great question. I would always recommend doing your listen check with the device, make sure the microphones sound good to you and all of that. And then doing a Ling test. Are you all familiar with the ooh, ee, ash,
Yes.
so you want your mouth covered, you want to be at a distance, and you want to repeat those Ling sounds, have the child, if they can, repeat the Ling sounds. I know there's different stages where it may just be detection at first. If you know they're hearing them, you may not be able to hear exactly how they're hearing them, but that's getting you closer to know, okay, it's audible to them at least. And then as they get the skills, have them repeat those sounds back. So, you know, yes, they're not confusing with ooh or anything like that. Because we want them to, if they can distinguish those 6 different Ling sounds, they're able to hear those speech frequencies as they should. But anyone else have any suggestions?
Well, if they only have a unilateral loss, then they can hear through their good ear with or without their hearing aids maybe. And so it's hard to, is there a wand or any kind of...
If you're using a Roger system, what I would recommend is you pair their device and then you go far, far away from them. So their good ear isn't the one picking up the sound. So if they're over here, go clear to the back of the room, far away, turn around so they don't see you and ask, you know, you could even just ask them, or you could tell them, I'm going to tell you a magic word. I want you to repeat it to me. And you could go clear across and say applesauce or whatever it is. And then they repeat it to you or have them repeat those Ling sounds, because you're right. If they have that good ear, they're always going to get it right every time, whether the device is working or not. So you always want to be sure that you're at a distance where you can truly tell that that device is doing the work that it's meant to do. So good question.
Okay, so I know in the past, cochlears haven't been known to last as long as Detect today. Is it true that like after 2 surgeries, they're not as effective, or is it changing now with technology and we're hoping to see them last longer?
I haven't heard that it's less effective. I know anytime that you're doing a surgery or you're in the cochlea, you're trying to protect those delicate structures. So I can imagine if it was like repeated over and over, it could have an impact on the success of the implant. But I'm not aware of research or data out there. I'm sure there is something out there that surgeons have probably put together regarding, you know,
so
the function of the.
To see that, I don't know, like with your new tech, that it's like 45 years, that kiddos might only need 2 surgeries in their life to like replace it, or?
Well, I mean, the hope is that it will last, like no more surgeries, one and good. I mean, I've got some people who were implanted in the 90s and their implants are still going strong. Oftentimes though, those one from the 90s that had like the one that took so much battery, they're called the C1 devices. Oftentimes a lot of hospitals are doing a volunteer revision, even though the device is functioning great. Just so they can have the newest technology and not have their batteries die so fast without wearing one of the big old body worn. But I mean, the hope is that it will last for many, many, many years and they won't have to have that. But as we all know, it is technology and, you know, no one can predict like how long it will last. But hopefully it will just keep getting longer and longer. And
What is your change for the external parts? Like what are you covered with insurance? Is it every 5 years that they can upgrade? Is that?
So when you first have a surgery, you have a 5-year warranty on your device. And so, except for the batteries have 1 year, and that's because insurances cover batteries, and battery life diminishes a little bit, you know, as each year goes on. But when someone goes ahead and gets an upgrade after those 5 years, then an upgrade has a warranty of 3 years on it. So there's some insurances out there that will cover after 3 years, but most still have that 5 year. So that's
So
kind
your
of
5 years for the initial warranty covers the entire 5 years. Your upgrade for the new
3
tech
years.
is only a warranty for 3 years.
Yeah, it's
but insurance won't pay for it for 5 years, which is kind of that 2-year gap where our kids are kind of getting into.
like if they
With
upgrade,
all
yeah.
companies, not just yours. I'm just
Yeah.
saying insurance.
Yeah,
Accurate?
yeah, that's pretty accurate. You can do extended warranties. After your 3-year warranty is up, you can purchase a warranty in case anything were to happen in that time frame. I don't know anyone who's been off the air and not been able to have equipment, whether it's AB says, oh, your insurance won't allow an upgrade, we're gonna send you a loaner, or an audiologist puts them in a loaner. We don't want anyone off the air, but insurance most of them, it's every 5 years, but there are a handful that will do it after 3 when the warranty's up. So.
This is Stephanie from St. George again.
Stephanie?
Had a situation recently where one of my school age kiddos, his processor stopped working. It had one of my Roger X's in the system. His mom sent the processor back to Advanced Bionics, not understanding that my Roger X was in the processor, and she couldn't get the processor to turn on anyway. Is there a way to
There's actually a warranty on your processor. So if you have the empty shell, you call Phonak and insurance will send you a new Roger X.
Did you hear that?
Tell me, I didn't catch that. Tell me again, slow, please.
She said that there's a warranty on your device and on the shell of your Roger X. So if a device gets sent back without getting that uninstalled, call Phonak and they'll send you a new Roger X.
With the serial.
With the loss and damage?
What was that?
Like a loss and damage?
Do the loss and damage? Was that?
It's insured.
Is it
It's just
through a loss?
insured.
Just call and they'll send you a new X because it's insured. So if a kid moves out of state or whatever happens.
She said it's insured and it's just, they'll do it like if a kid were to move out of state or a processor was sent back, just call Phonak and they'll send you the new one, the replacement. I know we've had that issue a couple times with kids when something's happened to their processor and their one from their Roger On was in it and they didn't realize, oh wait, it's in there. They have a system in place where they're going to be coming with it installed when it comes back. But previously, what they would do is they would send me a Roger X and I'd go out with my installer and put it in their device so they have access again. But it's kind of,
and so that's actually through Phonak, not.
Yeah, she's wanting to know if you want the contact for Phonak, the one that she called.
For Utah.
I have Phonak contact, unless it's somebody specific.
It's Patty Chappelle.
It's
She's our Utah.
Patty Chappelle, the Utah Phonak rep.
Yep, I know Patty.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Great questions. I think I'm out of time. I appreciate you guys and your questions, and I hope you got some information that will help you as you're serving kids. And I applaud you all. I've been a teacher of the deaf too. I know how much work it is and how much heart you have to do all you do. So thank you.
Thanks, Al.